I'm a big fan of Alice in Wonderland, so when I heard about Malice in Wonderland, which is a modern parody of the Lewis Carroll story set in the northeast of England, which is where I grew up, I thought it could be quite interesting and I was looking forward to it. It is abysmal. It is so bad. There's nothing really about it that's even Alice in Wonderland-esque. There's a slight little bit of trippiness to it that may be akin to some scenes in Alice, but it's nothing like it at all. The narrative is lacking, to say the very least. It's just a really bad film. It was released in 2009, directed by Simon Fellows and written by Jayson Rothwell, and stars, among others, Maggie Grace as Alice, as well as Danny Dyer and Matt King. The narrative, or also Pam Ferris is in it, which pretty big pull factor for me. That was definitely something that kept me going. The narrative isn't really a thing, but I'll read the description from IMDb, and this is as follows. An American law student in London is knocked down by a black cab. She wakes with amnesia in a world that's 1,000,000 miles from home. Wonderland. We follow her adventure as she's dragged through an underworld filled with twisted individuals and the lowest low-lifers by the enigmatic cab driver Whitey. She needs to find out who she is, where she's from, and use what wit she has left to get home in one piece. Sounds like it could be amazing. I love films about amnesia. I love Alice in Wonderland. Combine the two and things could go really well, but it doesn't. So I will say the acting I have nothing against. No problem with that whatsoever. Some of the camera work was alright. The colour palette is not what one would expect from Alice in Wonderland. It's very dingy and just not really what I would have hoped for with this kind of film, the way it was being marketed. The lighting is not great. The sound is unmemorable. I don't remember the soundtrack or any, no sound effects stood out. So I'll just say that that's a good thing because it didn't, offend my ears. It's just the narrative is so poorly executed and nothing interesting happens, and it's just in your face and yet not. It's like it's absent but in your face at the same time, and that doesn't make sense. But it's like it's screaming at you, saying, look at me, I'm, trying to be something interesting, but really failing at that. And that's such a shame because it could have had a lot of potential. It sounds like a really fascinating narrative and a really interesting take on Alice in Wonderland. Very far-fetched version, of course, but it could have been really good. Maybe in 10 years' time I'll give the film another go, but I'm not expecting me to change my mind. It is quite dire and not a very good example of this weird underworld that it described. It didn't really do anything. It's like somebody just went, oh, let's make a dingy film. How are we going to market it? Let's say it's slightly related to Alice in Wonderland. And yeah, there were like bits and pieces here, like the tea party and things. But because the rest of the film is just boring and dire, you kind of gloss over those because you're losing interest. So when something slightly related to Alice does pop up, it's like, well, I forgot I was even watching an Alice parody. Not a good film. Definitely not one that I'm recommending.